talk about. Alright, no, you're good.
No, I'm good. Okay.
What's up, Facebook?
Hey, Facebookers.
Hi, EJ's Facebook. Hi, my Facebook.
Hi, Kat's Facebook.
So we're just going to hang out for a moment and let some people jump on. We've got a whole professional setup going on, you guys. This is an important conversation. It's not just an everyday sex conversation. We've got media, crew, hundreds of them, behind the live streams, ready to hang off our every word and create recorded content and footage for you about
orgasming.
How did you say that so well? How did you do that? I'm like, we can't call it the truth about orgasming because the word is too hard to say. And then I'm like, we had like a 6-minute conversation about whether orgasming is a word, which apparently it is, but I feel like the word itself is harder to say than the act is to do. It's more complex to say that word. Alright, so hey, okay, we already have high numbers, of course we do with that title. Hi to everybody jumping on. We have relatively no idea what we're going to talk about. That's definitely going to be interesting.
It'll be definitely interesting. Anything about sex, I love talking about. So,
So for those who don't know EJ Love, she's an amazing friend of mine and a fellow entrepreneur here on the coast. And I'll let you introduce yourself. I was going to start like giving a professional bio or something. But you can introduce yourself and then I'll introduce myself for your people.
Awesome. So I'm a love, relationship and sex coach and sexual healer, tantra practitioner. So my focus is on really empowering and helping people to heal in any of those areas. So that's the general gist.
Which is such important work, obviously, and it's an area of conversation that I've been having in little different bits and ways through my community over the past, I don't know, however long, maybe even gradually over the past year. We connected, I don't even know when. I think we met in person at, was it at Christie's event?
Last year. At the start of the year,
But what happened was we were both in Bali together a few months ago and we ended up going out for a drink and then got to talking and basically started talking about how I've been posting some pretty interesting, transparent stuff around sex and around my own relationship and dating journey in my private Facebook group, by the way. If you're wondering why you've not seen it, it's because I don't publish it publicly. I put it in my free private Facebook group, the Daily Ask It Crew. And so it was kind of natural that we just started talking a little bit more about, I guess, my journey of learning, and EJ had been really helpful at a point of like support and help for me and guidance on different things that I'd been sort of learning and figuring out, and she'd given me some insight. And so I shared how I wanted to write a book essentially around that journey, like the mindset of owning your own sexuality and owning what you really want in life, but relevant to sex and relevant to relationships and dating, so from my perspective. And then somehow we came up with the idea that we were going to film a video interview together, which is how we ended up here. But when EJ arrived an hour ago, we were like, what did we say we were going to do? Well, we definitely know that we had this plan and that we made a date and we were going to do an interview and have it all recorded by my team as well. But we had no idea what we'd actually discuss because it was Bali and there were cocktails and it was several months ago. But it was definitely important and we trust it will come through now.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I was like, I don't know exactly what we're doing, but we'll just see what flows. So just trusting that whatever will come out. But I'm open to questions as well. So
so we just sat down for a moment before we went live and I said to TJ, well, what do you think we should talk about? And the first thing she said, I was like, yes, exactly that, which was...
It was that with when you say the word orgasm, that people have this kind of concept of that it's like this end result, like it's like some magical explosion that's going to happen at the end, that it's just like, it's like a goal thing, right? And so my take on orgasm is actually, it's about the whole experience. It's about feeling orgasmic in different ways, and it's, you know, as you said earlier, it's an internal thing, like it's
emotional.
There's so many parts to it, and I think we just get so focused on like, oh, I want to have these types of orgasms, or you know, and we get so focused on the goal.
But it's also a bit competitive, or I don't know if that's the right word to use, but I feel like a lot of people, a lot of women and probably men as well, assume that everybody else has totally got their shit together in that area and is just clearly like a sexual expert and master, and people have shame or guilt or fear or like mental blocks or whatever it is, And there's, well, yeah, a lot of, you mentioned shame earlier when we were talking in the kitchen, and then we had to stop ourselves talking so we didn't say all the good stuff off camera. But really, like, it's like a lot of things. It's actually really relevant in business as well. Everybody walks around assuming that everybody else is like super confident and a master and just knows exactly what they're doing. But everybody has uncertainties and doubts in every area of life, and definitely including sexually. And I've found that the more I just openly talk about this sort of stuff with my best friends, which has not, I'm not going to say always been the case, but certainly I seem to have friends who are sex obsessed, and it's all we talk about. So the more I've talked about it with my friends, but then now also through my community, and just opened up and made that conversation allowable and okay within my client groups and my community, even though it's, well, entrepreneurs and it's about making money, but we still talk about it. The more I've just noticed and seen, like, wow, like for me personally, there's been so many things where I felt uncertainty or shame, or like, I don't really know if I know what I'm doing here. And then you realize that everybody actually feels that way, or everybody has their own stuff going on in whatever different area. And so it's such an important conversation to open up and to not get emotional about, which is a funny thing to say maybe, but what I mean is to not be like hard on yourself or be like, oh man, there must be something wrong with me, and you know, like I've got to figure my shit out and I should feel bad, and kind of being hard on yourself, but instead just to be like, oh, well, that's, you know, interesting, or it's something I want to learn more about, and I don't need to feel embarrassed or self-conscious or like people are going to look down on me if I open up and share some conversations on this stuff.
Yeah, and I totally get that. Even as someone that works in this field, it's like, I'm not like, oh, this just completely orgasmic woman all the time. Like, it's like, oh, they're having all these orgasms. They're walking around
ecstasy 24/7.
Yeah, and I'll see other people that work in the same field, and I'm like, oh wow, they're like experiencing more than I am, and then like, so that comes up for me too. So it's like everyone's at where they're at, and like I have clients that have experienced things that I haven't experienced.
Yeah.
So and actually, when I started doing tantra massage, I would get clients coming in, and like some of them would have like full body orgasms on the table for the first time, and they'd never done tantra before, and it took me a year before I had my first full body orgasm. And I was like, I just don't think it's happening for me.
So that's what I mean by competitiveness.
Right? And then there was this
like
client.
It's a race, and like there's going to be awards given at the end, which I guess it kind of is, but not in a presentation format, at least.
Yeah, and I was even, like, so these clients, I'm like, that's not fair. How come you're having your first time and you haven't been doing all these practices? But also understanding that we have different, like, erotic blueprints. There's some people that are more energetic. There's some people that are more into, like, kink or BDSM. There's some people that are more sexual. There's sensual, and I'm more a sensual type. So sensual is what works for me more, which I may not be as like having more energy orgasms and sort of things. So, but totally comparing orgasming.
Well, I mean, what I find interesting is, and definitely pop your questions in, by the way, if you've got questions or comments or something you'd like to hear, obviously a professional standpoint on, or just our different take on it. I mean, I'm coming from the perspective that I've been just, I guess, actively learning about and exploring this area in my life for about a year now, which sounds funny because I suppose, like, really it's been part of my life for a lot longer than a year, sex, obviously, but it's one of those things that I think a lot of people don't think about. It's an area that people just kind of start doing at some point and then keep doing, but nobody's out there doing, well, not nobody, but most people are not out there doing sexual development, for want of a better word. When I became single last year, I left my marriage midway through the year. After I kind of started to, I guess, take a breath and settle into thinking more ahead to what I wanted to create into my life, to me it was honestly obvious, because I'm all about personal development and growth in every different area of my life. I'm always actively striving to understand my true needs and desires, be authentically me, and then grow and learn accordingly. So it really was just a natural thing that I'd never thought of before that, but it just kind of happened where I was like, well, of course I'm going to seek to learn more about this area and essentially find somebody that can give me, I guess, knowledge or insight that I don't know, but also help me to feel comfortable just owning who I am and what I want. And I'm kind of amazed / slightly impressed at myself to think about how far I've come mentally and emotionally and spiritually in this area over less than 12-month period, purely from giving it attention and purely from removing, I guess, the stigma around it. And instead of being like, oh my God, you know, I would never tell somebody what I really want, or that would be embarrassing, or you wouldn't talk about that with your friends, let alone, God forbid, your clients. Instead, I've just allowed it to be a normal part of my everyday conversation. And I mean, EJ's been one of the key people who's supported me, not even just in a direct sense, certainly partly that, but just because I watch her stuff and I watch the conversation and, you know, things that get me thinking, and just made it totally acceptable and okay and normal to talk about. So instead of kind of making it like a giggly or self-conscious or shame-based conversation, to instead be like, well, hey, we're all adults, we're all having sex. You can either keep doing it the way that you've always done it, which may or may not be working for you, and from what I hear from most people, not, or you can actively seek to grow and improve and essentially get into alignment around it.
Yeah, exactly. What I tend to find is that since people often put like sexuality, like, and it's like it's a little box in the corner, like I'll just get to that one day and everything else is more important. But sexuality is actually core to our identity. Like if we don't look at that, then how can everything else?
Well, it's repressing who you really are. So that's going to have a direct input on creativity, on your power of how you show up in every aspect of your business and life. So even if you're sitting there and you're like, totally good with mediocre sex, ladies, you can take your amazing sex and keep it to yourselves. But maybe your focus, like, I just need to focus on business. I need to focus on money right now. I can't be growing in all areas. Well, guess what? All areas affect all areas. I've certainly noticed that the more I own my power and just, it's about owning who you are and being unapologetic about who you are and just standing in your power. And that naturally kind of travels over to different areas, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's just so interesting. And sex and money are like intrinsically tied as well. So because it's linked to our self-worth. And most people I tend to find is that when they get to some sort of desperation, like, or something's not working, or they're not having the sex life that they want, and it's like it's the point where they're disconnected from their partner, or they just feel like it's not like that whole thing. Oh, I just know it could be better, but it's usually some sort of point of desperation. Then they're like, okay, now I need to work on this. Yeah. So yeah, like it's sort of like if it's an issue, but I guess people are more focused on the survival, things like that first, which obviously is important. Yeah. But sex is linked to that, right? Yeah. Like it's things crazy that sex has become so shamed. When it's like, how else are we here? Like, it's like if we wouldn't be here if our parents didn't have sex. Yeah. Right? Right? Has anyone else heard that? Yeah, but yet we're like, oh, we can't talk about it, it's taboo, and that sort of stuff. So I'm so glad that we're having this conversation.
It's so important. And I want to ask you a question actually, which is a bit personal and vulnerable for me to ask, but that's the whole point. I mean, I've written a ton of stuff over the past 6 months where I've like told very specific stories about things that I've done or learned or explored in this area, and I've put them all in my free Facebook group. And people have sometimes been like, holy shit, I can't believe you like shared that publicly. And I'm like, I just like close my eyes and press publish. I know that something has to be said, but my question is kind of relevant to that. I've really noticed that for me, I need to feel open and vulnerable, and I guess in my feminine, but mainly the thing I want to say is I need to feel safe emotionally or spiritually, and kind of like safe and held. And when I'm coming from that space, it just happens automatically because I feel that my needs are met on an internal level and emotional level. If I'm not feeling that with a guy, then I guess, I definitely know, as I'm sure most women do, how to just make it happen. But it's very surface-based and shallow, so I guess it kind of like scratches an itch, so to speak. But it's not what I would call an amazing, incredible, deep, transformative experience or anything remotely close to that. And so my question is actually around, well, what I've noticed is there's been times with certain guys, I'm going to say pretty rare to be honest, where I've felt completely just opened up, and usually because of maybe the conversation that we've had before that, or just whatever our connection is outside of the bedroom, where I feel so safe and in my feminine and in flow with this person. And so do you think that it's about finding obviously that partner who just totally gets you and allows you to step into safety and being open, and if you're a woman being feminine, is that what we need to look for, or is that something we need to look to create inside of ourselves, rather than being like, oh well, I need the guy to do this and this so that I can relax? Does that make sense? It was a very long question. It makes
total sense. I literally did a live stream last week, and I literally just put up a post. It's called hold her heart and open her body, basically. Like if her heart is held, then her body will open. And so,
Love it. That's title.
So creating emotional safety is key. And so this is why, like, people in relationships, you know, they think, oh, you know, the sex is not that great. You've got to look at, well, where are you not feeling safe? Like, safety is just like so
safety
key.
is the big word that comes up for me, and emotional safety. Really. But it's also about being seen, right? Like I know that if I feel seen. And I guess, just seen for who I really am and safe to be who I really am, like I'm accepted and loved for who I am. And I don't even mean love like, I don't mean the person has to be in love with me, obviously, but like love and acceptance essentially and safety. Then it's just, well, I mean, it's kind of pretty simple or obvious in your head, right? You're either going to have a guard up and you're going to be kind of protecting yourself a little bit or you're not.
Yeah, so this is the thing, it's like you have to create safety, yes, inside of yourself first, so that you can be vulnerable, because otherwise you're going to be holding back. I've actually got a really good story about this that happened to me the other night, so I'll come back. It's really good because I think so many women will resonate. And then you can have those conversations, and it's with it, you know, sometimes I have to ask my lover, like, can you just hold space for me? I've just got to talk about something, and I don't want him to fix me. Like, I don't want you to solve my problem. But I just need you to hear me, and I just listen. And listen.
Which is like, I had this conversation recently with the guy I'm dating, not even remotely about sex, but how the difference between men and female, like when women want to share something or a problem, whether it's like sexual or even like just general life thing that's going on, the man automatically assumes my job is to fix it and give you like 14 bullet point solutions with 3 possible outcomes of each. So we were talking about how, you know, what women often really need and want is just to be heard and to listen. And I was saying to him, like, unless I specifically say, I need your help.
So just hold the bucket and like literally, so I can
just like emotional vomit. Just let it all out.
I can get it out in about 15 minutes. It's gonna be 15 minutes. And it's interesting that this is actually linked to our survival, like back to our gatherer days where we would have to go out into the wild and gather things, and it was so that we wouldn't sneak up on the animals, so that we would just keep talking the whole time, so we would warn them, the woman would warn them that we were coming, so they wouldn't, effectively for survival, that's why we talk so much, is so that it's actually women talk to feel safe. And the next thing that we need to feel safe is touch. So talking and touch are the two main things that makes a woman feel safe. And the reason why touch is because we have what's called diffuse awareness. So we'll be like, you know, looking over here and here, and we can have a conversation with someone, and then something else will over here will take our attention.
Focus on more than one thing at once.
And so when a woman is like blah, 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 the thing that grounds her and keeps her attention is touch. But obviously you don't want to touch her when she's triggered. That's the time, not if she's triggered, emotionally triggered. It has to be, I guess, with permission, and you know, is really important, because, you know, and actually my post that I just wrote is actually about having a vulnerable conversation and then inviting a man to touch me. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be touched now. And it was a really beautiful situation, because then he put his hand on my heart and put his hand on my back, and then he just held me and breathed with me, and I was like, oh my God, what is this feeling? It was amazing.
Well, I think we're so used to being, I mean, honestly, kind of like, well, aggressively turn around, which is great also, or things just moving really quickly where you kind of feel like, but hang on, I'm not really present in my body. And I've personally found that I would tend to just kind of go along with whatever's happening. And that came down to, I guess, never having explored the area before or thought about it. But then also definitely feelings of insecurity or self-worth, or feelings like, well, I can't just like put my hand up and go, you know, press pause, not press play right now. We need to act like I need this, or I need this, or I need this. And I mean, ultimately, for me, it's not about needing to have kind of like a plan or a, you know, big, deep conversation, obviously, every time. Of course, you want flow like any area of your life. But with business, with money, with fitness, I've found in all areas that in order to get to flow, there gets to first be a time of exploration and learning, and maybe actually jumping into some, a little bit of planning and preparation, basically.
Yeah, totally. I want to give an example on this, because I want to link like the emotional safety, how it links to orgasm, is because I like what Kat said first, you only really surrender to that pleasure and surrender to orgasm when you've got that safety. Otherwise you're forcing it, and it's not a surrendered experience. And most of the orgasms that we're looking
Right.
for, or the orgasmic
Yeah.
experience, are surrendered. They're not.
Well, that's when it
you know,
actually feels
yeah.
amazing and you completely transport it away as
Exactly.
to, oh yeah, like I essentially created a physical reaction through certain movements.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
it's
kind
not
of robotic.
friction. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a friction based. So like a clitoral orgasm is a friction based type of orgasm, but things like your G spot and your cervical and your full body orgasms, they're more like a surrendered experience. So, and you know, you really have to have that safety in your body. And that's the other thing, is that most women aren't actually in their bodies. So that's where, you know, breath is really important. And
Right, and it comes back to safety again, isn't it? Because I'm just thinking about, like, if I'm not in my body when I'm in bed, it's because I'm worrying about, like, not anymore, but I used to have massive anxiety about how my body's being perceived. I'm still certainly conscious of it, but I don't feel like it kind of actively holds me back, but maybe it's still there, it's a thought. Or you're worrying about, what does he think about me about this, or am I doing something right, or oh no man, I really wish he was doing that other thing, or whatever, right?
Exactly,
And you're just like,
that's
oh,
it.
you're having this
Yeah,
whole conversation
up here, yeah.
which is
yeah.
why when there's, you know, when there's whatever lead up before that, whether it's an amazing conversation or just time together, like sitting and, you know, like little bits of touch and like that connection and interaction, and then when it happens, it is flow, for want of a better word, and you're actually present and in attendance. And I feel like ultimately what we're all looking for in every area of our lives is to be in flow, where you're transported and you're carried away. And that's actually where the magic happens. And it's also where, I don't know, you get creative downloads come through afterwards, or you're healed and restored in different areas. And it's so accessible and available for everybody. But yeah, for me personally, I've certainly had to find, or I've certainly got to experience that it took like some active, I mean, and obviously I'm still like completely learning forever and ever, but to start to get to where I feel like, yeah, I have some level of confidence or certainty in this area, obviously took that time and attention and learning.
Yeah, cool. That totally, makes perfect sense. And I want to give, I've got a really good example that happened to me the other night around how important communication is, especially when we're up in our heads. And like the shit that goes on in our heads, really, sometimes it's just like these insecurities. And this is a good example to show you, even though I'm, you know, a sex coach, like there's still stuff that comes up for me like all the time, and I'm conscious enough to go and be like, hang on, I need to explore this. So I was with my lover the other night, and he experiencing some numbness in his penis, which is actually quite common. A lot of men are actually quite numb. So when we were having sex, and I was really wet. I was so aroused, like a lot, really, really, really aroused, like really wet. And the thought that went into my head was, oh my God, is he even feeling this? Because I'm so wet, he's gonna think I'm loose, but I'm not really that loose. I'm just so wet because it's just. And then I was like, but he's numb, and like, what if he's numb and he can't feel anything? Like, and I'm like.
So you're like up here having a massive analysis and conversation.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I'm trying to. He's trying to pleasure me, and I'm worried about if he's feeling it. And so I just got him to slow down. I said, can we just pause? And I said, can you lie down next to me? And he lay down next to me, and I said to him, look, this is what's coming up for me. I'm wondering if you're actually feeling this, and because I'm feeling like I'm so juicy right now that like it's feeling good, but I'm worried about you, and I'm not able to surrender. I'm not able to let go. And I feel like the other thing I was doing is because I was wondering if he's feeling it, I was clenching my PC muscle so it would be tighter.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I knew that if I'm clenching my PC muscle, there's no way I can surrender, because when you surrender, you're completely...
Right, so you're consciously trying to manufacture a result. I love that you're sharing that. Because this is exactly what I mean, what I was saying earlier, like how we all look at other people, whoever they are, and we assume, well, obviously, you know, that's such and such person, she's got it completely sorted in that area. And you forget that we're all human as fuck. We all go through the same bizarre, crazy stories in our own heads with sex and with business, with money, with everything.
Yeah, so, and this is the thing, right? I knew that for me to actually surrender to this, I had to let go and not let, but it was like, oh, but he's not going to feel it, and like, there was all this stuff. And so I did call a pause. I said, can we just pause for a second, and you can lie down next to me. And so we cuddled, and I said, this is what's coming up, and I'm afraid that you're not feeling it, and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, oh no, like, because he's really connected to his heart. So he's like, no, when I'm feeling like all up in my body and my heart. And he's quite tantric as well, so he's like really got a good connection between his cock and his heart. And so he's like, oh no, I'm definitely feeling it. And then I'm lying there, and we're just talking, and my whole heart just goes, oh, my breath is like, my whole heart just exploded,
like relaxed and
opens, like, oh, you know.
Awesome?
And it happened like 4 times. I was like, oh. And then we had sex again, and I just completely, like, I felt in my yoni or pussy, whatever you want to call it, I just, things I never felt before. Like, and I was like, oh, is that my, it's like, I feel like it's on my cervix, and then it's going into my head.
So then you're analysing it again.
And I'm like, just surrender. And I did manage to surrender, but it was just, I was in total noticing about it.
But can I tell you what's coming up for me as I'm listening? Because I guess it's just like that, always flipping into the entrepreneur side of me. Because I'm just sitting here and I'm like, wow, think of all the powerful business and money lessons you can take from that experience and story, right?
Totally.
Like applying that over to where are you holding on, where are you trying to manufacture a result in business or with your fitness or even as a parent or whatever. I know we're not going to talk about all those areas right now, but you can see how, like, there's so many lessons about business and money and life to be learned from your own sexual journey and exploration, which again brings us back to, well, if you're going to decide to not, like, kind of go into that area or explore that area because you're just going to let shame or blame rule you, or you feel like it's an inappropriate conversation to have, or you're too embarrassed or whatever, then you're so, like, limiting yourself. And at the end of the day, it all comes back to give yourself permission to be unapologetically you. You know, we were saying earlier, like, sometimes I forget when I'm in real life with somebody who's not kind of from this world, for example, the man who I'm dating at the moment, like, I forget that not everybody just openly tells everybody else all their stuff all the time and says what they're actually thinking. Whereas I'm just like, oh, this is what I'm thinking and feeling. And like, for me, it's just very matter of fact because I'm used to doing that in my role in business all the time, and now even in sex conversation as well. And then we kind of had the conversation like, oh, we don't know each other that well yet. Are we really going to talk about this stuff? And I was like, well, of course. Why would we not? And it's just kind of an automatic thing. Yeah. And I think, like, if you're listening and you're interested in this area for yourself, obviously, then in the end, it just comes back to, well, if you give yourself permission to be who you are, if you're unapologetic about being who you are, then it gets to be okay to talk about anything with anyone. And that doesn't mean you would, go around trying to actively have a sex conversation with everybody to just make a point. It means if it comes up, right? Like, if it feels relevant, if you're feeling called to say something or you're feeling something, all those moments, whether it's with a partner or even with a friend, where you feel like, oh, but I want to express this, or I'm feeling that, or this, but this is important to me to be heard. And we're conditioned to then swallow it down and to be like, that's not an appropriate thing to say, or that's not professional, or then they're going to think this and that and the other thing about me, or they're going to judge me, or they're going to mock me or shame me or something like that. Well, if you stand in your power of being who you are and you give yourself permission to be you, then it literally means that you can say whatever you're called to say to any person. And if they did happen to judge you or say that's wrong or shame you, then essentially it's, oh, well, thank you for showing me who you are, or thank you for showing me that you're not a fit in my life, essentially, because I'm going to be who I am. And if you don't accept me as who I am, that's totally fine. But I accept me as I am, so I'll be on my way and I'll match and align with people who accept me as I am as well.
Yeah, totally. And on that also is what I find is a really good conversation, especially around sex or around if you're with a man or woman, whatever is your flavors, is you can start the conversation with, this is really vulnerable for me to share with you.
Yeah,
and
I love doing that.
And it sets it up beautifully, like this, and that person knows how important it is to you. And then you can even say, well, I'm afraid that if I tell you this, that this and this is this going to happen, right? Yeah. So that's a really great tool. And I just wanted to also add on the experience that I had the other night. By the way, I didn't actually have an orgasm, but it felt like I was orgasming the whole time. But there was no like, oh, is this orgasm and that orgasm and that. It wasn't.
Oh, I'm so interested in that, actually, because we haven't talked about this. But I was saying this not too long ago to a friend with a particular situation where I was like, well, I didn't actually orgasm, but it was like, I remember saying to her, I was like, it was magic sex. So I was like, what is that? Because, like, of course, in theory, I wanted to orgasm, but I didn't, and I kind of didn't care because it was just so magical.
Yeah, it's like just being orgasmic through the whole experience without it needing to be that big ending or explosion or any of that, like we said at the start.
Yeah, it's just connected to the whole experience.
That's right. When I was lying with him and he goes, "You're giving me a heart on."
That's so cute.
It was so cute. I was like, and when that happened, my heart exploded. I was like, oh my God, I'm really feeling like, and that's where I think the magic comes in, is when you have that safety, you have the connection, and it's your heart that's like really feeling it.
Totally.
And so it's not just localized down to your pussy. It's not like localized, it's you're feeling it in your emotional body. So I think that's where the magic can really come in. And it's juicy.
So what questions though? Do you have a question for EJ or for us or for me? Or just a general statement that you'd like to put out to the world? Do you have a question or anything that you'd like, to hear our take on or hear EJ's take on, obviously coming from the standpoint of this is, her work and her message and purpose is, really to share and support you in this area. So anything you'd like us to talk about or any questions, because we just, want to know what you want.
And I want to add something. This is another thought that I had, and I think this comes up for women in terms of so many women struggle to surrender. And there's like this, even like what I find is that, and I've experienced this personally, when a man is on top, it's like the need to do something. Like the need to, I'm going to have to move, or I'm going to have to, contract, or like I'm just going to have to do something, because there's been this stigma or this shame around not wanting to be a starfish. Like, I don't want to be one of those women that just lies there and takes it, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, when you're surrendering, you are having to pretty much let go to the pleasure and not do anything, like, because surrendering is a being thing, right?
That's so interesting that you bring that up, because I definitely do that. I'm very conscious. Oh, it's interesting, because I was like, I'm in flow, well. But I'm definitely conscious of, I'm like aware, because I remember a partner in my 20s, or my husband at the time, in my 20s being like, something like, you're being lazy or something like that.
That's lazy.
That's being lazy. And then I would say that since then I've always been like, right, I'm going to move as much as possible.
Exactly,
like
right.
an acrobat all around the bed.
Yes, because we think that if we don't, then we're being seen as lazy. But that's like having to do something is not being. And it can be, like, I really noticed the other night, I was like, I'm feeling like, he was on top, and I'm feeling like I really had to move, but then this part of me is like, I want to surrender, but I'm
interesting.
And I had the conversation with him. I said, I'm feeling like that you're going to think I'm lazy if I'm not moving my hips.
It's about receiving, isn't it? Which is such an important lesson to learn, again, with business and money, but with all areas.
Yeah. And I love the reflection, because I do that too, where I'm like, how I'm showing up in the bedroom is how I'm showing up. Where am I showing up in life? Like, where am I showing up in business?
Where am I thinking I have to force a result, or that it's not okay to receive? That I know for me, I've had definitely a thing, actually somebody called me out on it just yesterday, around kind of resisting when people try and give to me, because I feel threatened by it. I feel like, what are they trying to get from me in return, which is such a terrible thing. But, it's not. I'm not going to be hard on myself about it. But essentially, whatever conditioned belief to assume that, nobody would just be wanting to give something to me, that's going to come in return for something that maybe doesn't feel safe or okay for me. So I will, no. It, like, even with something like letting your friends buy you dinner, I had to really, I'm pretty good with that now. In fact, I'm totally fine with it. You're welcome to send me all gifts, PO Box 861, Service Paradise, and buy me dinner anytime. But it really was a thing for me where I never let anybody pay for dinner or even a coffee for me in years gone by, because I just felt like if I do that, they're going to assume that I'm like, I don't know, a tight ass or something like that. And or if I let that person buy dinner for me or do something for me, then what do I have to do in return? And maybe I don't want to, maybe I don't feel safe. And that would definitely play out sexually as well.
Yeah, this is super common for women, especially if a woman, when she's younger, experienced either some sort of sexual abuse, or she's experienced some kind of unwanted touch. I mean, it can be as easy as walking around a nightclub and guys pitching your ass. Or woman like that, just, there's something, there might be an energy on receiving that has been unwanted, or, then you have to owe something, so it's not really a genuine receiving, because then it's
and
like...
then you create a belief.
Yeah, so actually that really affects the energy of receiving in your body, if it's been some sort of body thing, like, unwanted touch, something where you couldn't say no, or your no wasn't respected. And then this whole energy of receiving is like, I can't even receive, and it filters out to everything.
Yeah.
So so that's a really good point around that. So it's
so interesting.
Yeah. So this is why, like, things like doing any sort of stuff around the body, whether that's sexual healing or like just tantra, like all sorts of different things that you can obviously do to work with the body, emotional release work, is really important. And as well as obviously doing all the mindset stuff. I think when you combine all that, it's really amazing to really shift some big stuff. Yeah.
And what I've found, and again with all areas of business and life, what I've found is there doesn't need to be any pressure on yourself to try and figure things out or become like a sexual master or something by next week or whatever it is, right? It's like somebody coming online as an entrepreneur and going, I'm going to be a millionaire in 6 months. Instead to just be like, okay, well, this is interesting to me, and or I want to learn more about it, and or yeah, I'd like to feel more confident or more grounded in myself in this area. And so simply to open up the conversation around it inside of yourself, first and foremost, let alone potentially with somebody else who you trust or choose to go into that conversation with. It's really just, I'm going to start to even bring some awareness to this area. I often find that people don't take action on essentially up-leveling or growing in a particular area in their life because they feel like, but I don't know what to do yet. I need to have a plan or something like that. Whereas actually all that's required is to start making space. If you simply make space internally and emotionally, but also in the sense of, you know what, I'm going to sit down and maybe just journal my thoughts on this for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, or take a walk and kind of mull over it and see what comes up for me. And if you've obviously invested the time in listening to us, then clearly you're interested in the topic. So it'd be maybe a perfect time after this to go and think about it, journal on it, take a like sexual meditation journaling walk, or write about it and just see what bubbles up. But there doesn't need to be any pressure to perform or to compete or to, as EJ said at the start, to get to an outcome. It's more about, I'm going to explore, I'm going to open up that conversation. And what you're going to find is simply by, this is what I've found, simply by opening up, you know, your kind of permission or awareness in your heart and in your soul, I'm allowed to think about this, I'm allowed to kind of let it bubble away inside of me, you'll start to notice things, you'll just automatically start to notice things that you want to learn more about, and or different things and different people will come into your awareness as well, which might even be how you ended up here, because maybe you already opened up the conversation in your head, obviously, and so you just by coincidence happen to see this live stream. Well, it's never a coincidence. It's always you're getting what you need. You know, I kind of laugh now and I feel like, how is it that all my friends and all my clients, each and every one of you, are sex obsessed? And I kind of laugh and I think it's funny. And then I'm like, well, no, that's just because I opened up the conversation myself at some point. And then all of a sudden, of course, I'm magnetically attracting in people who, you know, who are also sharing things that give me insight or helps me to learn and grow.
Yeah. Love it. So good. So juicy. That's my word at the moment. Juicy.
Yeah.
Juicy. There's a juicy live stream.
Juicy.
Yeah.
All right.
So what might be helpful, I think, you know, you talked about the journaling, is something around, you know, around what is where are you not feeling safe to receive pleasure? Like where, you know, something like that. And how is that stopping you? And how is it, you know, showing up in the rest of your life?
Of your life as well, definitely.
Yeah. I had a really good experience recently around it was really interesting. I videoed myself self-pleasuring. I haven't shared this yet, but I'm going to tell you guys. I videoed myself self-pleasuring. I don't know, I was just inspired to do it. And I watched it back, and I noticed that I was performing for the camera, and I was like angling myself, like, you know, make sure the stomach looks good, make sure like my pussy looks good, make sure I'm touching it right, like this kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. That's right. Like, make sure, because I might show someone one day, right? And then I realized when I watched it back, I was like, oh my God, I'm totally in performing and pleasing. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to have to do it again, but this time be an embodiment and receiving. And I was like really looking at, okay, where am I showing up in my life where I'm trying to perform and please people, rather than being and receiving an embodiment.
And just being who you are.
Exactly, right? Like, and it was really interesting to really reflect on that. And seeing how I was showing up on in this way was actually, you know, being reflected out.
Yeah.
But also my other question was, I wonder, and I do know this is true because I hear so many men that say we can tell when a woman is trying to perform. When a woman's performance and pleasing, we feel it.
Of course, because you don't have the connection. Everybody can feel that. No matter how kind of heart connected they are, you can still feel it.
Yeah, and they are actually longing for a woman to be in her body and to just receive him. Like the masculine, the man is the penetrative and the woman is the receptive. So, you know, with this guy, well, my lover the other night, I don't want to call him just this guy because he's a bit more special than that. He's very special, in fact, but just, you know, he just was longing for me to surrender. He was like, I just want you to surrender. Like, just surrender. And I was like, this is so not, you know, I've been conditioned for so many years to please, like, you know, I worked as an escort for 6 years and it was always about pleasing. and even like having orgasms to please the client, like to keep the, like I was like, well, have an orgasm so the to make the man happy. Whether he was like, no, I want you to have an orgasm for you, like, right? So it's really interesting, like how that really is basically wired into our bodies when we do that all the time. So I was like, okay, I feel totally safe to now surrender because, you know, you have the conversation.
And you have that connection.
Yeah, the connection is so important. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I strongly suggest that you obviously connect with EJ and follow her, and feel free to connect with me if you're not already.
Yes.
And there's going to be many more conversations like this happening from both of us in our own particular different ways. So main thing is you get to tune in now and look at what you want to take away from this and what you want to journal on or look into for yourself. Thank you so much for being here.
Right.
Bye. Much love. Press play. Bye.
Get juicy.
Get juicy.